My mom posted my kids' faces under a "Do not let them in" sign at my sister's wedding. She taped our photos to the church gate like a wanted poster, then texted asking why we weren't in the family portraits. 4 hours too late. That day, I didn't just walk away, I made sure the truth walked with me. Hi, I'm Jack, 38, and 4 hours after my mom posted my kids' school photos under a "Do not let them in" sign at my sister's wedding, she texted asking why we weren't in the family portraits. I didn't respond. Because by then, she knew. The wedding ended the moment we walked away. You ever feel your life snapping into two pieces in real time? Like you're standing right there while it happens but your brain just freezes? That was me, in khakis and a button-up I didn't even like, standing at the gates of St. Joseph's Church with my wife Ava, our 2 kids, and a diaper bag packed with snacks and crayons. And there, taped to the iron gate like some cursed welcome mat, was a printout of my Facebook profile photo. Below it, 2 school portraits of my kids. And in thick black marker, "Do not let them in." Ava said nothing. Just took my hand and squeezed. I nodded at the usher, who looked like he wanted to vanish. "Sorry, man," he muttered. This wasn't my call." I didn't yell. I didn't ask for an explanation. I just slung the diaper bag back over my shoulder like it weighed nothing and turned around. My daughter asked if we were still going to the party. I said, "We're going home, sweetheart." She pouted for 2 seconds, then spotted a squirrel and forgot the whole thing. My son just nibbled his granola bar. He always does that when he senses tension. By the time I buckled both kids into their car seats, my phone lit up with a message from Mom. "Where are you? The photographer needs everyone for family shots." I stared at that message like it was written in another language. And then I realized, it had taken her 4 hours to notice. See, this didn't start with the sign. That was just the moment the truth stopped hiding. It started with a mortgage. A house. 8 years of overtime. Of thinking, I'm doing this for them, for us, for the family. Of letting myself believe that being the responsible one meant I had control. I didn't. I had duty. I had obligations dressed up like love. The house I was paying off. My childhood home. Tired split level, drafty in winter, squeaky floors. My dad hurt his back and couldn't work full-time anymore. Bills started slipping. So I moved in, thinking it'd be for a few months. I paid rent, which was the whole mortgage. I handled the contractors, the plumbing, the leaky roof. My mom called me such a provider. And my dad liked to remind me how lucky I was to live rent-free. Rent-free. Right. When Emily, my little sister, got engaged, the group chat exploded. Mom renamed it Wedding HQ. I got tagged on the message assigning me the venue deposit. No one asked? They just assumed. Emily was marrying Tyler, a guy who calls every beer a cold one, and once asked if cops got a discount at Home Depot. Spoiler, we don't. 2 weeks before the wedding, Mom called. I was off duty, coffee in hand, uniform laid out neatly for my next shift. She said it like she was offering me a favor. "Jack, I know you paid off the $370,000 mortgage, but we're gifting the house to your sister as a wedding present." I stirred my coffee. Said nothing. She kept going, quoting Father Paul about generosity keeping families together. I said, "I live here, Mom." She actually said, "You won't for long?" Like I was a guest overstaying my welcome in a home I paid for. We had one more dinner before the wedding. That's when Ava asked the question I was afraid to say out loud. "Where would we go, Jack?" Mom smiled like a sitcom character. "Oh honey, you rent. You're used to it." I didn't respond. Not then. But I started collecting everything. Receipts. Screenshots. Refinancing papers. All the evidence that I wasn't a tenant. I was the one keeping the lights on. Quietly, methodically, I built a file. I called it For the Record. And then came the sign on the church gate. My face. My kids' faces. A command written in my mother's handwriting. That night, I posted the file in the family group chat. No commentary. Just facts. Just math. Just the truth. That was the last time they got to tell the story first. After the post dropped, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree thrown in a bonfire. "Mom, take this down right now." "Dad, you've humiliated your mother on your sister's wedding day." "Emily, what is wrong with you?" Then came the aunts. "Cousins." A retired neighbor I hadn't seen in 10 years. Everyone had an opinion. Most of them loud. None of them asking a single question. But the ones who mattered stayed quiet. Uncle Ray, who helped me drywall the basement 2 winters ago. Aunt Teresa, who once handed me $500 in a handshake when she heard Dad was behind on the utility bill. They didn't jump in. They didn't need to. They knew. At 4:03 p.m., a text from Dad, "Your mother has fainted." At 4:05 p.m., another, "Come fix this." I didn't respond. At 4:07, Ava handed me my daughter's coat. "Park?" she asked, just one word. I nodded. We took the kids, packed snacks, drove to the little playground off 4th Street where the swings squeak and the mulch smells like summer. We pushed our kids under an open sky while somewhere, 80 people tried to pose for a family portrait without the family member who paid for the venue. That evening, I set up camp at the kitchen table, laptop, coffee, the whole war room vibe. I wasn't planning revenge. I was building the wall. I opened my For the Record file and started adding every document they'd ever tried to twist. Every text where they said, "You don't mind covering this, right?" Every transfer labeled temporary, that became permanent. I added a scan of the mortgage release, dated and stamped. I attached the refinance paperwork, showing my name, my credit, my risk. Then I dropped in the photo of the Churchgate sign. My face. My children's faces. "Do not let them in." I added a caption under it, my mother's handwriting. I sent it to my lawyer. No lawsuit, not yet. Just prep. I wanted it filed, dated, timestamped, because I knew what was coming. And I was right. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. "Hello?" A voice full of beer and audacity. "This is Tyler. You made my wife cry on her wedding day." I didn't yell. I didn't even flinch. "You put my kids' school photos on a do not admit list," I said flat as a lined report. "That was your mom," he replied instantly. "Don't make this on me." "Then take your name off the deed transfer packet," I said. "Because if you sign it, it is on you." There was a pause. "What deed transfer? You didn't know?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "They told you it was a gift from me?" Silence. Then he hung up. I turned off my ringer and took my kids out for pancakes. That afternoon, Dad and Mom showed up at the house unannounced. I saw them through the window. Mom smoothed her blouse like it would iron out the consequences. Dad knocked like someone who's never been told no in his life. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. "Jack," Mom started, eyes shiny. "I can't sleep. My blood pressure is through the roof. Your grandmother is asking questions." "Then answer her," I said. "We already told people you misunderstood." I just looked at her. No words. Just let the silence do the work. "You humiliated me," she said, pointing like it was a weapon. "You used your children." I shook my head. "You used their faces to keep them out of church." I just shared the receipt. Dad stepped in. Tried the reasonable patriarch routine. "We can't afford to move. Prices are insane. Give us time." "You've had 8 years," I said. "This is how you treat your parents?" he asked. "This is how I stop being treated like a wallet," I said. Then I handed him a printed calendar. "You have 3 weekends. Pick 2. We'll help you load." They stared at me like I was a stranger. Because I was. To them, at least. The old version of me, the fixer, the ATM, the silent backbone, was gone. They didn't pick a weekend. But someone else did. Uncle Ray and Aunt Teresa pulled up the next Saturday in a beat-up moving truck that looked like it had seen 3 wars and at least 1 bad divorce. Ray climbed out, clapped his hands, and grinned. "Pick a weekend, or we pick it for you." He headed straight for the garage where Dad's museum of old tools, camping gear, and unopened treadmill boxes had been gathering dust like sacred relics. Teresa followed, wrapping up Mom's ceramic rooster collection in newspaper. She didn't speak much, just worked with the focus of someone who's seen this movie before. Ava and I packed boxes labeled with sharp Mark, tools, Linda, decor, Emily, miscellaneous, lots of. I pulled the live laugh love sign off the wall and leaned it gently against a box labeled don't with a smiley face. Around 4 p.m., the front door creaked open. Dad stood in the entryway, jaw tight, taking in the scene like he'd walked in on his own funeral. Mom followed, mouth already opening to declare the apocalypse. Ray beat her to it. We're moving you to a 2-bedroom near the park. It's clean. You'll live. You have no right. Mom snapped. You had no receipts, Teresa said gently. Jack did. They didn't argue with her. Not really. Teresa had that math teacher energy, calm, clear, and immune to guilt trips. The next weekend, we finished the job. They left with their stuff in a rented truck, their pride in crumpled silence, and their narrative dangling mid-sentence. I changed the locks the following Sunday. Not out of spite. Out of reality. Because once you've been stabbed with a pen labeled love, you don't hand it back uncapped. The house changed immediately. The air shifted. Quieter. Warmer. Like it could breathe again without apology. No more tiptoeing at dawn because Dad needed quiet to think. No more Mom's commentary on syrup brands or Ava's parenting style. No more bedtime lectures about sacrifice from people who hadn't held a flashlight under a leaky sink at 2 a.m. in years. I made pancakes the next morning. Sat with Ava on the stoop and watched our kids chase Bubbles barefoot down the walkway. Then the envelope came. Thick cardstock. Glittery font. Smelled like sugar and weaponized grace. From Emily. A photo of her in a white dress under fairy lights. On the back, a handwritten note in looping script, "We forgive you." I read it once. Then slid it into the kitchen junk drawer between the batteries and the packing tape. Because forgiveness, when paired with a lockout sign featuring your children's faces, isn't forgiveness. It's PR. That weekend, Ava and I painted the living room. She picked a color called Hushed Birch, that looked like quiet mornings and freedom. We finally moved the couch the way she'd wanted from the start, angled, cozy, not flush against the wall like Mom insisted. Halfway through, we found a tiny handprint on the baseboard. Our daughter's, from when she was 2. We left it there. A relic of who we were. A mark of who we're choosing to be. The house wasn't perfect. But for the first time, it was ours. The next person to show up wasn't Emily. Wasn't Dad. Wasn't Mom. It was Father Paul. He caught me after Mass the following month. Same small church where my name and face had once decorated the gate like a wanted poster. He approached cautiously, hands clasped, eyes kind. "I heard there was difficulty," he said, in the tone of someone tiptoeing through a minefield wearing choir robes. "There was," I said evenly. He adjusted his glasses. "I may have been quoted in ways I didn't intend." I nodded. "That happens." "You're a good man, Jack," he said gently. "Boundaries are not a sin." "Didn't think they were," I replied. And that was that. He didn't push. He just nodded, like he finally saw the line drawn across the ground. That night, I sat at the kitchen table. Kids asleep. Ava flipping through a magazine, her socked feet resting on mine under the table like roots growing under a fence. I opened my laptop and clicked into the final tab of the For the Record spreadsheet. I renamed it US. Then I wrote 3 lines. Mortgage, $0. Emergency fund, building. Sanity, paid. And just like that, the ledger finally made sense. 2 days later, a knock at the door. I peeked through the curtain and saw Emily. She looked small. Not in height. In energy. Hair tied up, minimal makeup. No phone in hand. No filters in her expression. I opened the door a crack. She held out a Tupperware. Casserole. "Of course. Can I come in?" she asked. I hesitated. "I didn't know about the sign," she said quickly. "That was Mom. I swear. You didn't stop it either. I didn't see it until afterward. And then?" She exhaled. "I had a panic attack in the bridal suite, cried in the bathroom, and blamed it on allergies. Then Tyler told me you'd posted receipts and the whole day spun sideways." I said nothing. She kept going. "I'm not the bad guy, Jack. I didn't ask for the house. They told us you agreed. That it was your idea." "They lied," I said flatly. "I know," she whispered. "But I didn't. Not until the wedding day. And by then, it was too late." I nodded once. "So what now?" She looked down at the casserole. "Now I guess you live in the house you paid for. And we live in whatever we can afford." I didn't say anything. She added, "Which, by the way, isn't much." I looked her in the eye. "Then you learn." I said. Like I did. She nodded, turned, walked back to her car. I didn't invite her in. And she didn't expect me to. Some lines don't erase with Tupperware. Later that night, Diaz, my partner from the force, slid a donut across the precinct table and raised an eyebrow. You good? I smiled, just a little. Getting there. You're the calmest pissed off guy I've ever met. Practice, I said. Things didn't explode after that. They just shifted. The air settled. The text slowed. The family group chat turned into a quiet little ghost town with occasional pings about forwarded recipes and memes no one responded to. No more demands. No more guilt-flavored reminders about what family means. Just silence, the kind that isn't peaceful, but isn't war either. Then, 2 weeks after the casserole drop-off, Dad and Mom showed up. No call. No warning. Just standing on my porch like they still had keys, which, to be clear, they did not. I opened the door, stepped out, and closed it firmly behind me. Not slamming. Not dramatic. Just clear. Mom held a manila folder. Dad had a hopeful frown, like he practiced this in the mirror and couldn't decide if he was the villain or the victim. We've been thinking. Mom started. Dangerous, I said. She didn't flinch. That was new. We'd like to propose something, Dad added. I looked at the folder. What is it? A transfer agreement, he said. You keep partial ownership. We retain long-term residence rights. I blinked. You're proposing to co-own the house I paid for? After putting me and my children on a do-not-admit list? Mom's voice trembled. Jack, please. This was never supposed to get so ugly. That made me laugh. Not loud. Not cruel. Just exhausted. It got ugly. I said. When you printed my kids' faces and taped them to a gate. When you rebranded financial abuse as generosity. When you acted like my mortgage payments were family dues. Dad stepped in again, the tone he used at barbecues when the grill flared up. We're trying to make peace. You're trying to make peace without accountability. I said. You want the story to change without admitting how you wrote the last chapter. They were quiet. I handed the folder back without opening it. I'll give you a week to get your things out of the garage, I said. After that, it's going to Goodwill. Mom's eyes welled up. We're your parents. I know, I said gently. And for a long time, that title gave you access. Not anymore. Ava stood in the doorway behind me. She didn't say anything, but the kids peeked around her legs, and when my son waved and said, Hi, Grandma, I saw something break in Mom's face. But she didn't apologize. She never did. They left without another word. That night, I found the label maker Ava bought on clearance years ago and printed a small tag for the fuse box. Ours. The next weekend, while I was cleaning the kitchen, Ava looked up and said, You think they'll ever say sorry? I shrugged. I think they believe they already have. We laughed, a little sad, a little free. Then I found an old framed photo tucked behind the water heater. Me and Emily, kids tiny, at the beach. Dad holding our hands. Mom in a floppy sun hat. I stared at it for a long time. Then I tucked it into a drawer. Not the trash. Not the mantle. Just somewhere in between. Because that's where we live now, between the memory and the boundary. They never picked up the boxes. So Uncle Ray came back with a U-Haul and his no time for nonsense attitude. We loaded everything. Dad's broken drill collection, Mom's plastic holiday wreaths, Emily's old prom dresses she still hadn't claimed. I dropped off 3 boxes labeled sentimental at their new apartment. Left them by the door. Didn't ring the bell. Then I changed the locks again. Not for safety. For clarity. The house breathed easier. We painted the hallway. Marked the kids' heights on the doorframe. Rearranged the furniture just because we could. No one told us the couch looked better another way. No one sighed at how much syrup the kids used. The silence in the house became warm, not cold. Mom still texts sometimes. You'll regret this one day. Emily emailed. We were all under stress. Dad sent a screenshot of a Bible verse. I didn't reply. I'd already told them, the door's open for a healthy relationship. Not for control. Not for guilt. Not for lies wrapped in casseroles. Ava and I sat on the porch one night after the kids went to bed, coffee mugs in hand, toes brushing under the blanket. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she said. Me neither, I admitted. But I'm glad I did. And I was. Because sometimes the only way to come home is to burn the old version down. Not with rage. With receipts. With truth. With boundaries that hold. This isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about remembering whose name is on the deed, and finally acting like it. And if you need that line, here it is. I'm not being cruel. I'm being done. Say it once. Say it again. Then live like you mean it.